Against the Grain Sports and your host, Joby Coleman. We're going to be talking about the NBA playoffs. We're going to the Eastern Conference, where it's just been an absolute dogfight like we expected. Very top-heavy Eastern Conference with the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics and the Chicago Bulls. But we're going to go ahead and talk about it more in depth with our NBA analyst from Against the Grain Sports, J. Kane Gerard.
Hey, what's going on?
What's going on?
Hey, what's going on, yo?
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump right into it. We experienced a lot of great basketball play. As we expected when we first started the beginning of the season, we knew that it was going to come down to this. And let's go ahead and start with the most hyped team going in. They was having pep rallies at the beginning of the year, et cetera, et cetera. You know where I'm going, the Miami Heat. Right now, a lot of people on Facebook land are really jumping on the Miami Heat bandwagon, rightfully so, because of the great players they have in LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. But they lost a game yesterday, a game they should have won, and once again, we still having the same problems at the end of the game. The ball was put in LeBron James' hand, and he was not able to make that last shot. They're 1 for 18 in games decided by 3 points or less in game-winning shots. And this is as a team, LeBron James 0 for 8. Who needs to take that last shot for the Miami Heat?
I don't know, man. It's kind of hard when you got 3 superstars on your team, and pretty much none of them has gotten the job done through the regular season nor the playoffs as far as taking that last shot. So I think Coach Spoelstra needs to draw up a play to where, you know, he's going to have game time decisions on who needs to take that shot, depending on matchups, matchups and how the player has been playing that game.
And see, I think that's another thing that I was looking at some of the plays that they drew up. It's a lot of isolation. Mm-hmm. It's LeBron James against 5 defenders or Dwayne Wade against 5 defenders. And I really haven't seen them set up a play for probably their best perimeter jump shooter in Chris Bosh.
Right.
I mean, he's not a low post presence, but I think if you run maybe a pick and roll in that situation and do a pick and pop for Chris Bosh, I think that would be more effective than one-on-one.
I think it will be too. I think that's one of the problems Miami has is they don't run a lot of plays. It's just a lot of one-on-one. Mm-hmm. And when they do run a play, it is a little pick and pop for Chris Bosh, which he pretty much, 60-70% of the time, he hits that shot.
He definitely does. But it's a 3-1. Philly is down. They're playing an inferior Philadelphia 76ers team. They have a lot more talent than this young team. Let's talk a little bit about Philadelphia and the heart that they're showing with Evan Turner. Mm-hmm. He's come off the bench at 17 points. Really struggled this rookie season. Now we got an upstart point guard in Jrue Holiday, and you got veterans in Elton Brand and Iguodala. Do they stand a chance of coming back from a 3-1 deficit?
I don't think mentally they have the passion to come back and win this series. I think Miami go ahead and take it in Game 5. But what I will say is if they did get that heart, they will be able to do it. Right. Because the first 2 games, I really feel like Philadelphia could have won those games because they did everything right up until the 4th quarter.
Right.
And it seemed like, I guess, that pressure got to them. I don't know what got to them, but it was like they went away from what worked.
And that's what you get a lot out of young teams like that. You got a 20-year-old point guard in Jrue Holiday who looks like he's going to be, maybe 4 to 5 years, be mentioned among the top point guard if he continue with this kind of play.
Right.
But like I said, they're outmanned. We already knew that Miami was going to kind of blow through them. So let's go into the team that they should be playing in the next round, the Boston Celtics, who swept the New York Knicks. And I know that's kind of a deep and it's a deep cut, but this is what it was expected because they hadn't played a lot together with Carmelo. How do you feel like Boston did and how they basically dismantled the New York Knicks?
I think, Boston just pretty much did their job, man. They did what they normally go out and do, and with New York, the way they're set up right now, we didn't really do anything right. First of all, we don't have an aggressive enough coach that can get them into their offense, that can get them into their defense. But, at the same time, the players, they have to buy into it. They have to want to do it.
Well, let me kind of interrupt a little bit, but do you think he comes back? Will New York be searching for a new coach, or will you think he'll be back next year?
That's a hard one. If I'm Donnie Walsh, I would maybe be looking for a new coach. That's just me. But depending on the personnel that they can get this summer with some trades, and they got basically our whole team is free agents.
right,
other than Carmelo, Chauncey, Amari, Landry Fields, and Tony Douglas. But everybody else is pretty much free agents. So depending on how they put those pieces together, I think D'Antonio, he can make it, but he has to get some defensive-minded players to go with that, that system that he has.
You need a couple 7-footers. I don't think I have a 7-footer
We
on
do.
the roster. I mean, at all. Kind of flipping over to the Boston Celtics, the team that did win. How far can they go with Shaquille O'Neal coming back for the next series, potentially against the Miami Heat? That's what we think is going to be. I mean, nobody lost a 3-0 lead, so I think it will be Miami and Boston. Boston, Doc Rivers is right now maybe the top coach in the league.
Yeah.
I think he really coaches the team, and I think that he has the opposite of what Miami's problem is. They have players, they have plenty of options to score during the end of the game. They got Ray Allen, you got Paul Pierce, you got Kevin Garnett, you got Rajon Rondo. You got 4 guys that can actually. Then you got Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, he's 38, but he's still Shaquille O'Neal. You got Jermaine O'Neal. You got guys that can actually hit in the fourth quarter. You have a lot of options. How do you see the Miami Heat and the Boston Celtics series going?
I think Boston comes out and they pretty much execute and do their job defensively. With Miami Heat wanting to do a lot of one-on-one, I think that kind of, describes what they did with New York. We had a lot of one-on-one play, So I think they pretty much do the same thing to Miami. And then Miami has the same problem that New York had, point guard play.
True.
They don't have anybody that's going to be able to stop the ball.
And that's true, and that's going to be a problem. Rajon Rondo seems to take his game to another level. During the playoffs, I think he's ranked number 3 in the playoffs as far as point guards behind Chris Paul, the way Derrick Rose has been playing. Let's go shift gears a little bit, and let's talk about Derrick Rose, probably potentially the best point guard in the league.
Before we switch gears, I just want to say this, too. If you looked at Boston in that series, those guys really didn't exert a lot of energy in that series. If you know
the last 2 games especially.
The last 2 games especially, they didn't really exert a lot of energy in that series. So Boston is still going to be pretty fresh. Plus, they're resting right now.
Right. And now
Miami's still playing.
Then that's the best thing for Boston to do, to have swept that series so they can get some of the older guys a little bit more rest.
Mm-hmm.
But switching gears to the Chicago Bulls and the Indiana Pacers, Indiana's really playing very with a lot of energy. They was the only team in the playoffs with a losing record. They're playing with a lot of energy. Darren Collins is showing that he's trying to become one of the elite point guards and going toe-to-toe with the elite point guard in the league, MVP. I say MVP, allegedly MVP, Derrick Rose. How do you see Indiana matching up? Can they win another game in this series?
I think so. I think Indiana really should have won the first 2 games. I think Coach Vogel, he has them playing good, but I don't think he knew what formula to put in at the end of the game, because if you watch those games, Indiana took a lot of bad shots in that last 8 minutes of the game. They took a lot of bad shots, and it just resulted in them losing. And then when they did win that game, they still almost gave that game away.
That's true.
But the thing about it is they're still competing. So once he addresses those issues that they're having, and if they buy into what he's telling them, and he tells them the right thing, I think Indiana has a chance to make this a competitive series. And maybe even win if it goes down to the last game.
I can't say that they'll win. I think that they're showing a lot of toughness. I think they're Tyler Hansbrough, Psycho T, as they call him, and Roy Hibbert. Those guys are really are playing up to the caliber of Noah and Carlos Boozer. Like I said, I think the only minus in there, they're 1 player away. I think they're missing that 2 guard that can really create their own shot.
Right.
Danny Granger is a number 2. He's a rock. He's not a Batman. He's a guy that, he's not a superstar. He's a number 2 kind of guy. But if they can get that 1 player, watch out. Indiana could be back to where they was in the early.
I think they have him. I really think they have him. I just don't think he gets. He doesn't get the playing time that he's supposed to. I think if you can switch Granger to that 2 and let Mike Dunleavy play that 3. I really believe that will work, because Mike Dunleavy is doing a pretty good job with the minutes that he's getting.
Right.
He knocks down shots. He moves the ball. He's very intense. I think that Mike Dunleavy is a good player if they change that system just a little bit to kind of fit his game
to what he does. But like I said, Chicago is number 1 seed for a reason, and I see them going past. I think they win the next game on Wednesday. Only question is Derrick Rose's ankle, but I think Chicago wins it. Now we're going to the most competitive series that I don't think anybody had expected. They thought it would have been Orlando 3-1, but it's Atlanta 3-1.
Right.
And we got to take our hat off to Larry Drew. This guy is coaching phenomenal, because this is something that the last coach could not do. Last year, Orlando was completely destroyed by 25 points a game against basically the same caliber team. You know, the nucleus is still there in Orlando. What is it that Orlando can do to get back in this series?
Well, I think pretty much Orlando, man, the guards that they don't have that killer instinct. You know what I mean? Not only that, they take a lot of bad shots. They take a lot of bad three-point shots, and it's like everybody is falling in love with the three-point shot. Nobody's going to the rack. Nobody's posting up besides Dwight Howard. And then you got Atlanta with a team full of athletes. So, you know, once you take those bad shots, they off and running.
Well, see, the problem with that is Orlando has been playing the same kind of ball since Stan Van Gundy has gotten there for the last 4 years, and it had been effective. Because we got to remember, just 2 years ago, Orlando was in the finals. We're pretty much the same team.
Right. But if you remember when Shaq was in Orlando, they played the same kind of style, and what happened? They got there, but they never won.
Well, see, the problem with that, Orlando let Shaquille O'Neal go, so we don't know how good Orlando could have been. Now, that's why I fear for Orlando right now, because Dwight Howard is up and coming free agent. He could leave, and then
he's going to leave. If you look at Dwight's body language, or you look at, you know, some of the things he says in the press conference, he's not happy. And the players that they have, man, he's not happy with those players. They're pretty much all offensive players, and they're streaky shooters. They're not guaranteed buckets every night.
Question: who leaves first, Stan Van Gundy or Dwight Howard?
Dwight Howard's going to leave first.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Atlanta, because they are the team that's up 3-1. Their guard play is phenomenal right now with Jamal Crawford. Joe Johnson's actually showing up in this series. And let's not forget about Kurt Hybrid. I think that was one of the under-the-radar moves that was made that has really caused them to be effective, because Hybrid is a shoot-first point guard, but he's a great defender. And
well,
he's very
I wouldn't say he's a shoot-first point guard. I would say Kurt Hybrid pretty much gets them in their offense. He makes sure they run that offense. Last year, with Mike Bibby, you saw just a lot of just one-on-one going on. You saw a lot of one-on-one action, and I don't care if you in amateur sports, college sports, or even pros, one-on-one does not win games. It gets you a lot of nice plays, but it doesn't win the game.
Right. So do Atlanta have enough? Because if Atlanta faces Chicago in the second round, which it looks like it may happen, who comes out on top?
That's going to be a good game. That's going to be a good series. It depends on if Chicago's bigs come out more aggressive than Atlanta's guards.
We'll see. Well, thank you for coming on Against the Grain Sports. It was Eastern Conference we're talking about. We're going to be back, and we're going to be talking about the second round next week. So that's Jay Kane, Gerard McCain, NBA analyst.
Peace, y'all.
He'll be back with us on the next segment. Like I said, the Eastern Conference is very competitive right now. I think that so much stuff is going on. It's going to be one of the best series. It's going to be Miami and Boston. We're going to see how that's going to play out, because the last time that Boston seen Miami, they were blown out. So we'll have to see. So it's your host, Jody Coleman, Against the Grain Sports, and we'll be back at you very soon.